Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited about this video today. This video is about all of the 2021 historical romance releases that I read this year. We're going to go through them and we're going to give you my rating and very briefly what it was about. If it's a book that I didn't love, you're going to get an even briefer chit chat about what it was about, maybe just one or two words. If it's a book that I really loved, then you're probably going to get a lot more. So let's go ahead and get started. I do want to show off this adorable sweatshirt that I got. Has all, can you read that? It's full of historical romance authors. I got this from the historical romance readathon merch that Lacey, Lisa, and Jess did, and I love it so much. I think it's adorable. So I'm very excited about this video. I love historical romance, as you know, if you watch my channel at all. And 2021, I made a big effort to read a lot of the new releases that were coming out this year, and I read 27 of them. 27. Some of these were from well-known authors, some of these were from authors that I had read and loved before, some of these were from new-to-me authors, and even a few of these, or at least one, is a debut author. So I'm very excited about these. So I have them separated into 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. I didn't give any of these books anything lower than a 3-star, and we're going to go through each star rating and I'm going to tell you about them. So this is exciting. I'm very excited about this video. I've been wanting to do this forever. There are still a few books that are coming out in December that are not included on this list. Most specifically Stacey Reid's new one, which I do have an ARC for and I have not read yet. And then Elisa Braden has a release coming out in December that I'm very excited about, part of her Highland Magic series, I think, or Highland Mystery series. I can't remember what the series name is called. So I was thinking about holding this video off until then, but with the historical romance readathon coming up, I thought it might be perfect timing to sit and talk about these books and let y'all know what I thought about them. So here we go. We'll start with the 3-star reads. Okay, so one of the 3-star reads is the Heirs Hunt by Joanna Shupe. So this is the beginning of a new series for her. This book came out early in the year, I believe like in actually maybe it came out in March. I read it very early in the year. Also, most of these books are books that I received an advance reader copy for, and so a lot of them were books I was trying to see what I would think about them. Anyway, so I read this book. I had very high expectations for it. Joanna Shupe is an author that I really, really love most of the time. Well, I really enjoy her writing. Sometimes the ending doesn't work for me. And that's exactly what happened here. This was a 3-star book for me. This had some really great pining between the characters. This is set in America. It's a Gilded Age historical romance. They were childhood friends, like teenage sweethearts. They were separated. He has gone on to build his own fortune. She is like a tennis player, professional, like a pro tennis player, which was rare for women at the time. And she is getting sort of set up with a British duke to her parents' happiness. She doesn't really want to marry him. So I really love the pining. I really love their romance in here. What did not work for me at all was the ending here. Disappointed in this one. 3 stars. Okay, another 3-star book that was released was Hit Me With Your Best Scot by Suzanne Enoch. This book was fun. Honestly, I enjoy Suzanne Enoch's books in the moment when I'm reading them. They're usually they're fun, they're quirky, they're a little bit, what's the word? Not, like, a little over the top. Like, you kind of, if you've read Suzanne Enoch, you kind of know that she makes her Scottish heroes very Scottish, like leans into that a little bit hard. This one was interesting in that our heroine was a very famous actress, and our hero was just completely bowled over with her beauty right from the get-go, and he was sort of hired to protect her from someone who was out to get her. But ultimately, I was left wanting a little bit with this one. So none of these books were terrible, except one. We'll get to that in a minute. This one was just okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But if you're looking for just a rollicking romp Scottish romance, then I would suggest trying it out. Okay, another 3-star read for me was The Devil in Her Bed by Kerrigan Byrne. And honestly, like, it pains me as I went through this list to see some of my most beloved authors on here in this 3-star category, specifically Joanna Shupe, but most especially this book by Kerrigan Byrne. I love Kerrigan Byrne. I love this series. I love the storyline of the Red Rogues, but this book disappointed me in several aspects, specifically the ending and specifically the hero too. Like, I have my full review of this up on Goodreads if you want to know specifically what I was disappointed in. It wasn't terrible at all. Like, it's classic Kerrigan Byrne, darker, fast-paced, sensual, all of that good stuff. But some of it just left me a little bit wanting, and compared to the other books, I felt they were a lot stronger than this book was. Okay, now this book is one that was a new-to-me author. This is The Most Eligible Viscount in London by Ella Quinn. This book wasn't terrible, honestly. I remember very little about this book, and that's largely why it was a 3-star read. It was a little underwhelming. I do remember the middle being pretty slow and just a little forgettable. Okay, the next book is The Heiress Gets a Duke by Harper St. George. Now, believe it or not, I have some of these authors released 2 books this year, and Harper St. George is one of them. This book was a 3-star read for me. This is a Gilded Age historical romance. It had a lot of potential. I loved the opening sequence when they meet at the boxing ring, but again, just was left a little disappointing. I felt like it was a little too heavy-handed with the feminist theme in here, and so 3 stars. Okay, the next book is How to Train Your Earl by Amelia Gray. This book wasn't bad. This book had a really great beginning, but it really also had a very slow middle. Largely, if these books end up in 3 stars, it's almost always because the pacing was off. It wasn't a book that gripped me. It wasn't a book that I couldn't put down. Some parts of it were very slow, but most of all, if it was a 3-star book for me, there was something lacking in the romance. It wasn't a very swoony romance. It wasn't developed enough, and that's exactly what happened here. It had a lot of potential. I liked her writing style, but the middle was very slow, and the romance just wasn't strong enough for me. So 3 stars for that one. Okay, another 3-star read is The Duke Heist by Erica Ridley, who also had 2 books released in this year. One of them you'll see later on. This book starts the Winchester family, and this book was fun. I loved the Winchester family. I loved that setup. But again, there were parts of this that felt a little slow. This book felt to me a little like she was kind of finding her footing with this new series, which is not bad, but it did sort of dampen my enthusiasm for picking it up, because I felt like she was trying to tell too many stories of all the different Winchesters and their characters' lives, and the romance was good, but it wasn't great. So 3 stars for this one. Another 3-star read was When a Duke Loves a Governess by Olivia Drake. This one had a lot of potential too, in that this is a romance between a governess and her employer, which is always a ton of fun. But once again, this one just had a very lackluster romance and also slowed way down in the middle. Almost all of these books that are 3-star reads had very strong beginnings. Like, the opening chapter was great, the setup was very interesting, the premise was really good, like I was excited about it. But then something inevitably happened where the story just kind of went downhill, and despite the fact that that first chapter was so strong, it just couldn't carry it through the rest of the way. So I'm not writing these authors off entirely. I feel like some of them, if they are an established author, I'll be picky about if I pick up another book from them. But some of these authors in the 3-star range, some of them were sort of finding their footing either in this genre or as a writer, and so I feel like their other future books will probably get better, but for now, it was a 3-star read. So now this book honestly broke my heart that I gave it 3 stars, because the first book in the series you'll see later on, and it is The Duchess Hunt by Lorraine Heath. Lorraine Heath is fantastic. I love and adore her books. This had a couple that I was just absolutely thirsting to get their romance. However, the final conflict in here really rubbed me the wrong way with how the hero treated the heroine, and up to that point it was really good, but ultimately this was disappointing, and I just expected more, so 3 stars for this one. But I mean, the cover, one of my favorite covers of the year. We love an open back and a shirtless man. Okay, and then this last one that's in the 3-star range is The Devil's Own Duke by Lenora Bell. This book was very quirky too. I enjoy Lenora Bell's. I've only read one of her other books, Love is a Rogue, which I really, really liked. This book felt it felt like she was trying to do too much with her story in that we have this man who is claiming to be the long-lost heir to the dukedom, and it is the heroine's dad who is the duke who's dying. He doesn't have an heir, and so she is trying to get her dad to remarry and produce an heir so that they don't lose their estate and all their finances and everything. And in comes this rogue here who says that, oh, I'm actually the long-lost heir, and she doesn't believe him for a second. So it had a really great setup. But there were some side plot aspects of this that just took center stage priority over the romance. I loved their chemistry in their initial meeting, but it kind of fizzled out and didn't carry through long enough for me to be fully invested, so 3 stars for this one. Okay, now we are on to the 4-star reads. So one of the 4-star reads that I had was A Wicked Bargain for the Duke by Megan Frampton. This was my first Megan Frampton. This is part of a series. This one was a ton of fun. This one had great writing. This had great characters, a pretty great romance. Not quite 5-star level, but still really enjoyed this one. And this next book is An Extraordinary Lord by Anna Harrington. This book was also my first Anna Harrington. I absolutely loved this book. I can't say that because it wasn't a 5-star read. I almost absolutely loved this book. I felt like they had such great chemistry. I loved the premise of this heroine who is sort of like, she's not necessarily an assassin, but she's not an elegant lady, which is what we typically see. She's a little bit of a rogue heroine, and she teams up with this like Bow Street Runner type of hero. He may not specifically be a Bow Street Runner, but a man of authority, like a Chief Justice, I believe is what he is. And they team up to sort of solve this crime, and their sparks between them were just so compelling. I loved the mystery aspect of this. I thought it was a fun read, really enjoyed it. Was hoping for a tiny bit more in the romance department. So really liked this one. Want to read more from this author. Not quite a 5-star read. Now this book was the second book written or published this year by Harper St. George, and it was The Heiress Gets a Duke, right? No, The Devil and the Heiress. Okay, The Devil and the Heiress. So this book has a beautiful cover. I was very intrigued with the premise of this book. I loved the idea of this man who has been pining after this heroine, but he is also very much pining after her fortune, and he sort of sets it up in a way for her to sort of end up compromised. I couldn't think of the word. Compromised, so that she has to marry him and he can have her fortune, but along the way he ends up falling for her. This couple had such great chemistry. I really loved this story. There was a road trip aspect to this. There was an excellent caretaking scene in here. Oh, it was so great. The ending was where this one missed for me. I didn't really love some things the hero did. I was hoping for more from him. I was hoping for a little bit more redemption from him. And so the romance wasn't ultimately satisfying for me because I wanted more of a gesture after he had betrayed her in such a way. So this was a 4-star. This would have been a 5-star if that had been different. Okay, the next book is The Viscount Made Me Do It by Diana Quincy. I really enjoyed this book. I felt like it was a ton of fun. This has some diverse characters. This is an Arabian woman who is a bone setter. So it was sort of seen at that time as like a scam, or like they were quacks. Nobody took them seriously, but she is very studied and educated in the art of bone setting from her family. It's been passed down in her through generations. And then our hero is a man who's trying to figure out who killed his parents, his family, and he's led to her because he sees that she has his mother's necklace that she was wearing when she was killed. So they had such great chemistry in this book. I thought it was really, really great premise. I thought it was very diverse, very unique setting, wonderfully strong heroine, swoony hero, but again, like, just not quite knocking my socks off to be a 5-star read for me, but pretty close. So I liked this one a lot. Can't wait to read the next one. I have an arc for her next book that comes out next year, and I'm very excited to read it. So liked this one a whole lot. Not quite a 5-star read. Okay, this next book was a very fun surprise, and it was A Reckless Match by Kate Bateman. This was another 4-star read for me. This book had one of the hottest mining sex scenes I've ever read in my life. Like, seriously, an underground mining scene. It was so good. It was probably the best part of the book. It was so swoony and romantic. I loved the premise of this one too, where we have 2 feuding families who have to meet on like an equinox and shake hands over this land that they share. If one of them doesn't show up, then the other family gets to take over that land. So the heroine shows up, and she's hoping that the other part of the family won't show up, because her family is in very dire financial situations. She ends up showing up, and of course the hero does too, and they're pulled into this sort of mission to find a way to save their land, and they end up discovering something that is very valuable underground in the mine, and this was delightful. I do feel like the reason this is 4 instead of 5 stars is that the adventure plot took a little bit center stage instead of the romance. I was hoping for more of that excellent tension and chemistry in the underground mine scene. So 4 out of 5 stars, enjoyed this one. Okay, this next book is Rules for Heiresses by Emily Howard. This one was a very fun book too. I really liked this one. We have our heroine who is decided she's not going to settle for a match that her family wants her to do, so she sort of goes and escapes, goes in disguise as a boy. She's just going to set out and live her own life and not get married like her family wants her to. She ends up at a gambling hell where she loses money to our hero, who is her childhood crush, childhood sweetheart. He doesn't realize that she's actually not a boy and is a woman. When he does realize that, he's immediately remembering all of the feelings he had for her. They end up in a compromising situation. It's a marriage of convenience. This was good. I liked this a lot. There were parts of this that I really, really enjoyed, and I am a sucker for a childhood sweethearts romance, but ultimately the romance wasn't quite hitting me at the 5-star level once again. But still interested to read more from this author and enjoyed this one. Okay, so now we are on to my 5-star books. So I have all of them here in physical form because if it was a 5-star book that I loved, I went and bought a copy. Some of these were sent to me by the publisher, which was super fun, or the author. So here we go. The first 5-star book was A Rogue to Remember by Emily Sullivan. This is also actually her debut novel. This was delightful. This was so charming. This was so unique. This was a childhood friends to lovers. They grew up together. He was a ward of her father. Her father is very ill. She ended up running away to Italy, actually, because she didn't like the pressure that was on her, the pressure to marry, because she had feelings for him, of course. And he ends up tracking her down in Italy and to let her know that her father is dying. His time is very limited. Please come home and see him. They had a bit of a falling out. And it's essentially like a Tuscany road trip between the two of them. There's some excellent pining in here, specifically on the hero's part, but also the heroine. Really great mutual pining. This was lovely, delightful. I super enjoyed this book. Okay, another 5-star read was none other than Bombshell by Sarah MacLean. I am a huge Sarah MacLean fan. I haven't talked about her as much this year as I did last year, but I still most ardently love and adore her. I think that she is a powerhouse, and I love what she's doing for romance books in general, and I love what she's doing for historical romance too. This is the first book in her new series, which is the Hell's Bells series. This has Cecily, who is a heroine that we've met in future books, and Caleb, who we also have met in future books, and specifically The Day of the Duchess is the book that you want to read before you read this, because they have some really great tension and some moments that happen in that book that sets the stage for what's going to happen here. Now, in this book, Cecily is very much a feminist, and I would say that she's a little bit of a violent feminist almost. She's formed this group of women, the Hell's Bells, who are out to get men who harm women or who are abusing women, but in a way that society doesn't notice or won't take action on. So they're vigilante heroines basically out there to destroy these men who are ruining the lives of women. So this book had a really fun, cinematic, dark feeling as some of these events happen when they're tracking down these men. Like, it was action-packed and it was so fun. I really enjoyed it. And the romance between Caleb and Cecily was piping hot. Like, there is so much pining in this book. So much pining. If you love pining, like, you have to read this book. Caleb is a man who goes to his knees for Cecily. Oh my gosh, the way that he loved her was my favorite thing about this book, and it's what put it at 5 stars for me. I loved Cecily. I love a strong heroine. I love feminist romance. I do feel like this book was a little heavy-handed there. So if you were sensitive to that, might not love this one as much as I did. But because of all of the other elements to this, like the romance, the hot, like the pining, the hot romance, the fun, action-packed plot, and I do love some excellent revenge from a pack of heroines at a time when they would not have existed, you know. I thought this was super fun. I really enjoyed it. 5 stars. Okay, and this is a book that I have read recently, actually, and it is Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins. It's no surprise that Beverly Jenkins has ended up on my 5-star list. She's phenomenal. I adore her books so much. There isn't any book of hers that I have read that I have come away feeling disappointed. I love her books. I think they're fantastic. Even if certain aspects of them maybe disappoint me in a slight way, I still have such an enjoyable time reading her books, and this was no different. This is about our heroine who is a powerful, independent woman. She's a horsewoman. She trains horses. She raises horses. She ends up rescuing our hero, who is a reporter who has come to town to interview a black doctor for a black newspaper. She takes care of him, nurses him back to health, and they have a romance. And it's beautiful, and I loved it. I loved especially the horsewoman parts of this, if you know me. You know, I love horses. It was great. Okay, so now the last 5 books that I have are books that I saved because these are my top 5. These are the books that I feel like were my favorites from the year that were released in 2021. These aren't just, this isn't, obviously this is a list of books that were released in 2021. So this isn't my top 5 historical romances for the year, but this is my top 5 historical romances that were published in 2021. So let's go ahead because I'm very excited about these. So the first one that I absolutely loved with my whole heart and soul was Waiting for a Scot Like You by Ava Leigh. I adored this book. It was so much fun. It was so steamy. It was so just beautiful. I loved this Scottish hero. This is an older woman, younger man, road trip romance. She is a widow. She has gray hair at her temples. You know, she's a beautiful woman, and she has lived a very cramped and not ideal life because her husband sort of kept her under her thumb. She didn't have very much freedom. She had to do everything that he said. So now that she is free, her children are grown, her husband is gone, she is this feeling of just, I can do whatever I want to do. And what she wants to do is go to an orgy. And so she does. And her friends are like, whoa, you can't just travel to an orgy unaccompanied. We will have Captain Duncan McCameron come and escort you there. So he does. He is immediately struck with her, just bowled over by her personality, her beauty, just her presence, just everything about her. He just desires her and wants her. He wants a family of his own, and she does not want a family of her own because she's already had her family. So they do butt heads a little bit there. He has some feelings for her that go beyond lust, and their romance was fantastic. I loved this book. I loved the ending. They have an only one bed scene. This is sort of an ode to Ferris Bueller. Like, it was fantastic. I loved this book so much. 5 full stars. I think everyone should read this. It was a ton of fun. Okay, and now another book that I have that is 5 stars is Scoundrel of My Heart by Lorraine Heath. This is actually the first in a new series. The Duchess Hunt was the second book. I love this book so freaking much. The hero in here, oh my gosh, like the pining, not just pining, but like the pure love that he had for the heroine and how she loved him too. Like, oh, it's just a thing of beauty. These are childhood friends. And I don't know that friends is the right word. I mean, they are childhood friends, but it's really like he was her friend's brother. It was fabulous. So as young kids, they meet. He is the second son, so he's the spare. And he's trying to decide what he's going to do with his life. They end up at a ball one night where she really wants to secure a match with the Duke, who is the hero in the second book, because if she marries well, she will get the cottage that her grandmother has left her, and that's something that she wants deeply. So the hero in here decides that he's going to help her get that match. Then some things happen with the hero's family where he is cast out. They lose their titles and their ranks. His father dies, and he is left trying to support his family. And the way that he does that is he creates this den of iniquity, basically, where second sons or spinsters can come and have pleasure and gamble and have fun, and he charges them a fee. Years pass, she ends up tracking him down and tries to gain entrance there, while the Duke is still seriously pursuing her. They have a beautiful romance that is just, honestly, my heart. This is one of the swooniest romances that I've read this year. I love this book so much. 5 stars. Okay, and another book in here, which is the second book this author wrote, is The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. This is a female-female romance. I loved and adored this. This is book 2 in the Winchester series. I don't think that you need to read this series in order. If you just want to read this one, you totally could. This has our heroine Tommy, who is part of the Winchester family, and she is a master of disguise. Sometimes she dresses up as a man, sometimes she dresses up as a woman. She's she's part of this family that has been adopted by the Winchesters, and they take it upon themselves to bring justice to people who maybe, like the courts or the police, they would not consider doing just things for them. So she ends up taking a client, Josephina, the heroine, who wants her help with finding out who actually is responsible for decoding this manuscript, who she believes to be a woman. There's a villain in town who's trying to claim it and take credit for it. They end up meeting when Tommy is dressed up as a man, and that's sort of their cover so that they can spend time together, because then she is actually with a presentable gentleman, and when she realizes that Tommy is actually a girl and that she might have feelings for her, Tommy has meanwhile been pining after Philippa for a very long time. It was just beautiful. This was a truly beautiful, heartwarming, enjoyable from first page to last page romance. I loved it so much. 5 stars. Okay, and then we also have the second book published by an author this year, and it is The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. This is the second book in her series. The first book I gave 3 stars. This is a Gilded Age historical romance. I loved this book so freaking much. It was so good. It was so romantic. It was so seductive. It was surprisingly swoony, just from very subtle things like kissing. Like, I was like losing it when they were just like kissing, or when he would just like touch her hand. I was like literally losing it. This is about Kit, who is our hero, who is a rake, and Alice, who is determined to marry so that she can get out from under her mother's thumb, who is extremely demanding and controls her life. She goes to Kit and approaches him for seduction lessons because she knows that he knows how to get ladies, and she's like, I don't know how to get guys, so can you help me know what to do so that men will notice me and want to marry me? And he reluctantly agrees, and it is basically a romance of seduction lessons, and it is seriously one of the most romantic, seductive books I have ever read. I feel like this is Joanna Shupe at her finest. This was absolutely fantastic. Could not put it down. Loved and adored it so much. One of my favorites of the year, not just published in 2021. This book, one of my favorites of the year. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And finally, the final book that was a 5-star historical romance that was released in 2021 and is my favorite is The Devil in Disguise. Devil in Disguise by Lisa Kleypas. My love for this book has no bounds, honestly. This book wrecked my soul. This book is achingly romantic, like so swooningly romantic, like old school romantic. We have a Scottish hero with a mysterious past. We have our heroine Merritt, who is Lillian and Marcus's daughter. She's a widow. She's a bad A woman who's running this shipping company. And our hero comes to her because he has this whiskey shipment that was damaged. That's how they meet. They have a very, very wonderful first night. There's so much passion between these two. So much chemistry. But even more than that, like this soul level connection. And I think that I've talked with Jen about this. I've talked with Justin about this. I've heard other people say that this felt a little insta-lovey. And I think that it does. But this is one of those few books where that completely works for me, because you just felt from the moment they met each other that they had this otherworldly connection, like two old souls meeting, like the other piece to their puzzle, you know? It was absolutely beautiful. I loved seeing all of the Wallflowers and the Ravenels in here. I just loved this book so much. It was a complete joy to read. 6 stars. One of my top tippy top books of the year, probably in my top 3 books of the whole year. I love this book with my whole heart and soul, and I would die for this couple. This is romance, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to know what a great historical romance is, you must read this. It's perfection. I love it so much, so much, so much. Okay, there you go. I have gushed quite enough. All right, we did it. We got through all 27 historical romances that I have read this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my ranking. Let me know if there are some of the books on here that you have read that you have also either loved or not loved. I'd love to know your opinion on that. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, my friends. I'll see y'all in my next video.